Hey, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Hello,
Okay, good. David,
Ethan.
Christine, how are
How
you?
are you? How is everyone?
Doing well, and yourself?
Good. Sorry, I missed the last meeting, Matt. Work.
No worries.
Okay. Apologize for that.
No worries at all. Yeah, Mark. I assume Jennifer, is that Judy? I assume. Or is there another one coming? Nope, there we go. So Judy's coming in as well. All right, wait a few more minutes. We have looking for Tom and Amy to get started. We'll give it a minute. Hi, Judy.
Hi,
Is it the middle of the night where you are? I think you said you were in
yes,
Well, thanks for calling in so late. We appreciate that.
sure. My pleasure.
Hopefully you're somewhere fun.
Oh yeah, we're in Finland. Helsinki.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, enjoy your time there.
Thank you.
No worries. Good. A few more things while we're waiting. Let's see. I saw Tom sent over the. Let's see, hang on one second. Let's back up. Okay. We have Amy. Tom said he might be a little bit late, so we'll get started. Kathy, unfortunately, I'm going to ask you, do you mind scribing again? We'll get the transcripts and everything from online, obviously, of course.
Okay,
Sorry.
no
Need someone.
worries.
That was the voluntold, I think, maybe. Is that what we call it? So we call it in the biz, right? Well, thanks, everybody. When we get started, 6:30, bring it to order. Let me share my screen really quick, give you guys a few items to look at. Share screen option here. Here we go. There it is. Here. Everybody see the screen? We're good? All right, well, we'll get started kind of 6:30. Kicking off here. So I did have an update with the select board yesterday, kind of took them through where we are as a committee, told them that we have, a bunch of discussion that we've been talking through. Talked about how, the committee as a whole, I think, is super focused on safety and education. We all want education to help, move the lake to a safer place. So that was something I talked about. I talked to them about, we have a motion on the floor talking about some amended bylaws. So I shared with them what those look like. I told them, I said, there's nothing, no vote has been taken, but I didn't want to share kind of some of the discussion that we have had. So I did that as well. I did bring up the discussion around in context, Judy, for some of the stuff that you sent around about, do they want to include law, like Massachusetts voting laws, in bylaws? Their preference was to make reference to the Massachusetts voting laws, and their reasoning for that was they don't know when different laws change, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't have something in their bylaws that was incongruent with what the Massachusetts laws were saying. So that was the recommendation they gave to me on that specific subject. So I took what you have and I put it, and I did transpose that, and I'll show that to you in a second, onto the signage. Because I know the more I kept thinking about it, I think to your point, getting that up in front of people is very prudent. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I talked about how, we have had discussions about different times. I share with them some of the research I've done as well on times on the lake as from what I've seen. So I shared that. So that was pretty much the update. I did have a opportunity to make kind of a mock sign, like almost like kind of a full scale size, one of the ones that we have, just to show them what we're kind of what this could look like, I guess. So we're working on that. So I did share that with all of them as well. So overall, kind of talk to them, and then kind of try to get a feel for what they're looking for as far as timing. If we were to get an amended bylaw approved and voted on here, and the majority rules or it doesn't, we can talk through that. But their timing would be to get them some verbiage this week, if they were to kind of entertain that and discuss that, to potentially put it on the town warrant for this upcoming town meeting. So the timing is kind of a little bit of essence. I did share with them that there's an opinion on the committee here that we would like to get something going so that we could get education and things moving this summer. And really can't do anything unless we actually have, an amended bylaw that then gets approved by the town, in order to really kind of not gonna spend a bunch of capital money and, build signage if you don't have something if something's gonna change, in a month or two or whatever it may be. So that's what I shared with the select board yesterday. I think Kathy, I think you were there. I think Tom was there as well. So you guys can chime in after I finish up here in a minute. Timing for completing the charge. I think that's something we need to kind of put an endpoint on. The charge was to go through April. We kind of extended it through May. I've been working on compiling kind of a report that has all the research and all the discussion we've had kind of thus far with the committee. I'd like to share that with everybody before the next meeting, so you guys can kind of take a look at it, see where we are with that perspective. Because it comments on the education piece, comments on the the enforcement piece of the charge, and that's all coming from prior meetings and discussions that we've had. I'd like to put that in a context that you guys can all read it, and then we can discuss. I'll send it to everybody probably in the next week or so. I'll ask once I send it, don't comment online about it. Save your discussion for when we meet again on the 21st. Just don't want to have we can't have discussion outside of open meetings. So I want to make sure that I'll send it for review, and then we can discuss on the next meeting, if that makes sense. I have the next meeting poised for May 21st for us to get together and kind of discuss that, and also see where we are overall. So with that, 6:35, I'd say the minute review, I guess they came over tonight, Tom. Thank you so much. I have not had a chance to review them prior to the meeting. So I'm not really in a position to kind of acknowledge those tonight, but we can push those to the next meeting. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to review the minutes yet. I have not. Yeah, I'm getting a bunch of nods, so I'm going to go with the notion that we're not going to vote on the minutes from the last meeting. That's okay. Everybody's good that way? Just give me a couple nods. Be great.
I would be abstaining anyway, Matt, because I wasn't there.
Oh, sure. Fair enough. Great.
And
Okay.
sorry they came in so late this time.
Oh, no worries. Tom is here. Does that mean Kathy's off the hook, Tom, or?
Oh, for tonight? Sure.
Yes. It is.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, that's great.
I
Thank
don't
you.
think I missed anything, did I?
I don't think so. Nope,
Okay.
not at all.
Yep.
You're good. You're good. So what I'd like to do tonight, I want to open up the kind of conversation a little bit around some of the signage, because I want to acknowledge what Judy had sent around over the prior meeting, talk through a little bit of that, continue our discussion. Then around 7:15, I'm going to call it, and I'd like to move on, our vote for accepting the amended bylaws as written to replace the prior vote of the existing to keep the existing bylaws as is. That's what we have a motion for on the floor. So I'd like to kind of put an endpoint on that tonight. And we've had, several conversations and discussions, so it's time to see where we are in that point. I'll kind of kick off with the discussion piece. I want to show this to everybody. So Judy, and in reference, I know it might be hard to see. And I can maybe try to blow it up a little bit bigger here, just so that people can see it. What I took a stab at is, looking at some of the things that you had pointed out that were Massachusetts boating laws. I think to your point, like I put up here Shutesbury and Massachusetts boating laws. And I did bring in, some of the items that you had, 150 feet of swimmers, rafts, floats, shoreline 300 feet from designated swim areas. I put that all up here, the swimmers must be accompanied by, by a boat, so on and so forth. But I kind of thought you made a good point last time. I don't want to keep it under like, rules and etiquette. I pushed it right up into these are laws. Some would be Shutesbury, some would be mass boating laws, but kind of in the face of education and enforcement for people who are visiting the lake and how we decide to do our education. I thought it would be a good way to, if they're not in the quote bylaws, they would be, prominently put in front of everybody on the signage, to really kind of emphasize that. So there's no like, oh, hey, that's not really a law, or it is a law. It would be clearly, defined. So I guess I wanted to start with that, and I wanted to kind of get let you comment on that, Judy. You brought this up last time and you shared it. I wanted to, give you kind of the first option to kind of discuss it. And you're on mute too, by the way, just so you're aware.
So this is the way that you had envisioned the sign would look,
Yes, exactly.
but the bylaws would be what?
Yeah,
The top part?
the bylaws would be what I proposed in the prior
Oh,
meeting, and I'll just put these up. I kind of did this for the select board yesterday, was just to kind of give them an example of, here is the existing bylaws on the left side. Here is the proposed bylaw revision that we discussed, just to make it a little bit cleaner and kind of see line for line, what changed and which ones were changed, which one was added. So the bylaws wouldn't necessarily have the motorboat laws in it, but we would include it. I feel we would want to definitely include it on all the education and all those items that we're talking about.
but then we all agreed that the swimming beaches should be marked at 150 feet.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's something we should work with the Lake Wyola Association on, and I think that would be easily accommodated. I think in the past, and I think David Green even acknowledged on his side of the lake, east side here, they do measure it out to 150, and I think that's an easy ask of the association to put those at 150 feet.
Well,
Heck, I'll do it.
shouldn't we have that on the bylaws? Rather than the swim area shall not extend further than 75 feet from shore.
That is on the bylaw. It's right here. It's one of the things we changed is only non-motorized watercraft can dock or launch from a town or lake Wyola Association beaches. These areas shall not extend further than 75 feet from shore.
But shouldn't that
Yeah.
be 150?
The swim area that they had for the beach was 75 feet is what they'd had in the past. That's what we kept it at. But the buoy would go out to 150 feet.
Oh, I gotcha.
Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make these kind of visual demarcations around, let's go.
Okay.
Visual demarcations around the lake with the 150 at each of these buoys, and that's what we had shown on the signage. So that people, when they're driving in their boats, they say, okay, oh, there's going to be one over here, one over here, one over there. And we talked about even maybe on that buoy putting like a laminated 150 feet like a marker on it, so people can actually see, they know what the distance is.
Mhm.
That was something that I would recommend that to the Lake Wyola Association, and I know they would 100% do that. I'm on the association too, so it's at minimum, I'll do it. It's simple enough. I would be happy to do that. So that's kind of where I think we can kind of get the blend based on the feedback from the select board, because again, how many people are going to actually go to Lake Wyola and look up the bylaws? They're really going to be looking at what education we're providing, whether the signage in front of them, mailers that we do handout cards, putting one of these up at the Lake Wyola, at the association clubhouse, making sure everybody can see it. I mean, I can see myself at one of the, the meetings coming up here walking everybody through what the rules and laws are as part of our educational process.
Yeah,
Towards the
well,
future.
I understand all that. I still don't see any reason not to have that on our bylaws.
Yeah.
Why did they say they didn't think it should be on our bylaws?
What they did say was that they don't want to have bylaws that are getting changed by the state and them not
Oh.
knowing it. They don't have the resources to go keep rechecking the laws, I guess. David, go ahead. Mr. Green.
Okay,
I was at the meeting last night, Judy, and this was presented to them, and they didn't question it. You know, they didn't ask questions. They just felt this was, there was no like, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing more? They were like, this is fine. So I walked away with the impression that the select board was very comfortable with these proposed bylaws changes. I just wanted to give you my personal feedback on that. I don't know how Tom feels, but that was the feeling I got in the room, that there was not a lot of pushback, except I believe one of the select board members did ask the question, have you discussed wake boats? And so there was a small interaction with that. But other than that, I walked away from that meeting feeling they were very comfortable with this. And Tom was there, so feel free to chime in, Tom.
Yeah, you were there, Tom. I think Kathy was there too. So I'd love to get your reactions. That's great.
Yeah, the select board didn't go through it line by line in any way, shape, or form. There was no specific comment saying we like what we see. On top of that, I do wish to note that Matt presented the word consensus at least twice about some of the things going on. And I do want to remind everyone that I did not consent to the idea that this had to be done by the end of April or May, because I quoted the select board as saying this could be done at a special town meeting, not necessarily at the annual town meeting. So there really wasn't a consensus to speak of, and I was rather surprised to hear that word used, because that's not how I read our group. So I disagree, David, in the tone that I read from the select board. The only specific question I heard again was about, are you including anything about wake boats? And I believe we could even look at the recording and we wouldn't see any one of the select board members reacting specifically to anything on this, what is presented to us here right now.
But that was the only pushback. And then when Tom,
I don't think there was-
when Matt gave his answer, there was no follow-up questions to it. So I didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency.
They wished us luck in working on our discussion tonight. They did not read what we are looking at right now. I was there in person. It was on big posters. It was presented around the room, but nobody referred to any one word on what we're seeing right now. So please don't talk about pushback. There wasn't any pushback from the select board. There wasn't
any pushback.
But there wasn't any pro comment either.
I didn't say that.
You implied that they were fine with it. And
You're
they,
suggesting I applied that. I said that there wasn't any pushback.
you said they seemed fine with it tonight.
I think that's my impression, yes.
But I don't think they said they were fine or not fine with it.
I didn't, those are your words, not mine.
I know, and you asked what my impression was, and my impression was, respectfully, I don't think they gave a comment about whether they were fine or not. So I think
I'd
it's
like Kathy
too
speak.
far to say they were fine with it. That's all.
All right, I appreciate that. And I think in just clarifying, when I mentioned the word consensus, I guess I may have misspoken that into terms of the fact that many of us have talked about that we want to get this done sooner than later because we want to get something done this year. So that was kind of, I guess, when I said consensus, that was what I meant. Apologize on that.
Well, it's a loaded word, and you may have used it strategically when it wasn't the case.
That wasn't the intent. Kathy?
I was there in person last night as well, and I think the reason they agreed that maybe the mass boating laws didn't need to be spelled out in the bylaws was not only that they were concerned that if something was updated on the state's part, we might miss it on our part. But also I think they appreciated that we don't want to make the bylaws more complex and longer than they need to be to communicate the basic safety stuff that we need to communicate. So I think that was where they came through on that. I don't think they were necessarily were leaning one way or the other, but I don't think they were in shock about anything that we've done so far. I think they felt like we're trying our best to do what we've been charged with doing as a committee. And, you know, I left not feeling like they were unhappy with the work that we've been trying to accomplish.
Okay. All right. Amy, go ahead.
Just a couple things that I'm noticing in the revamp of the signage, is if we're going to keep laws and rules in one section and then etiquette in the other, I think we should look at perhaps moving, actually, I'm sorry, can you share the screen again to see the newer version? A couple of the points that are still listed in etiquette actually are laws, I believe. Let's see. So all motorboaters must have a mass boating license after April 1st, 2026. So
Sure, fair enough. We can change that.
yeah, and the way I'm reading it, like we might want to adjust the wording on that slightly because I don't know if there's a clear difference in the actual effect here, but it's completing the boating safety education program and getting a boater safety certificate. Again, like it's semantics a bit perhaps, but and then there also is the time frame is different depending upon ages. I don't know if there's a better way to encompass that. You know, again, keeping signage consistent through the years, but just looking at that a little bit closer. And then the paddle sport vessels must have USGCG approved PFDs. That should also be in the law section, I think. And visible navigation
I'm open
lights.
to it. I'm
Right,
definitely
so
open to
like
it.
putting those up there. But the good stewards of the lake, swimmers, paddlers, encouraged to travel in clockwise direction. And then we had also had the swimmers are encouraged to have visible buoys. I think you had that on there in the last one, and for
Okay.
space purposes that may not be possible, but I kind of like that idea just as a suggestion for people. I think that really helps. Just if we're really thinking about safety. Again, it's not a requirement, but I think that really is a great suggestion that some people may not think of.
No, that's great. I'll keep the comments coming because I'm happy to update this for our next meeting as well too. Judy, I think you were next. Then Rhea. You're on mute, Judy. There you
I
go.
like the idea of having the encouraged to wear a visible whatever it is, but how I don't remember how you said it in the last one. I
Okay.
liked that on there. But I don't like the swimmers and paddlers. That really bothers me because I don't know, first of all, how swimmers are gonna, I don't understand why you're encouraged to watch the boats coming towards you. That I don't see how that's etiquette. And but I don't think it's gonna help any accidents that might come up. I don't.
Sure, fair enough.
Get it.
I was thinking about it as like when you walk on the road, I usually walk towards into the traffic just so I can see the cars coming at me. It's kind of like my old Boy Scouting days. My old Boy Scouting days, when you're hiking and walking, the right side's the right side, and when you're cycling, you go the other way. You go with
Right.
it. So that was just my thoughts. If you're a paddler or if you're in a kayak, seeing the boats coming towards you would be, if there was, some potential safety, potential accident or something like that, you might be able to avoid it or see something that's coming your way or see something's wrong. Or, I mean, what if somebody had a heart attack and he was driving a boat and it, they went out of control? I mean, anything's
Right.
possible.
Yeah.
But so I was thinking about it more that way, I guess.
I
And from a
don't
swimmer's
see-
perspective, I can see probably not super effective, but maybe maybe we take out the swimmer part and just say, paddlers or something. I mean, I'm not trying to tell people which way to go by any means. It was
Yeah.
more of a, an awareness thing, being able to see, what's going on.
And that, and I would like to include on the laws part about the motorboats maintaining 150 feet from swimmers.
I have it right here in distance. Speed limit 6 miles per hour headway speed within 150 feet of swimmers, rafts, floats, and the shoreline.
Mm-hmm. Under the boating laws.
Oh, well, these are all laws, is what that entire section are.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it should show up in the mass boating law section and the Shutesbury and in our own bylaws.
It is there under distance, Judy.
Yep.
Can you highlight it for us, Matt?
I can try. Yes.
Oh, wait a minute.
Let's see. Share. It's right here. I hate it when all this stuff is in my way. But it's right here, if you can see where I'm putting it right here. It's in the distance section. All right, it looks probably very small as my, you can see that. I can blow it back up. There you
Okay.
go.
I do see that speed is 6 miles an hour within 150 foot of swimmers, rafts, floats, shorelines, and 300 from designated swim areas. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I took everything you had in yours and I was trying to find a way to incorporate it into the sign and into
Okay.
the education piece. Yeah. No. And the more and more I kept thinking, more I kept thinking about it, I actually I like the way you presented it now, and that's why I wanted to find out from the select board what their thoughts were, because I would have been happy to put it into bylaws, but they kind of would rather it this way. So I'm like, well, I can get to it a different way by using it in the education side. Okay. Uh-oh, I lost you again there, Judy. You're still speaking. Okay. I think you're still trying. There you go, Judy. Finish.
So the top part, the Shutesbury and mass boating laws, that isn't our bylaws,
It's a
that-
mixture of both. It's both.
both. But so you're not saying that you would include it on our bylaws then?
But by the recommendation of the select board, no. But
Hmm.
that's why I would make sure we make it to the signage.
It wasn't the recommendation of the select board. I object.
That's the recommendation they gave me, but that's the way I
No, it
interpret
wasn't. Two people mentioned an opinion. There was no motion. There was no vote. The select board made no formal action. You are
Okay.
putting actions and words in their mouth. Two select board members made comments. It stopped there. The select board took no action.
Okay. They can do whatever they want once we give a recommendation.
But
So
you said the opposite just now. You said that they recommended, decided, you implied they voted. They did not.
you heard from both Kathy and Mr. Green what they heard, so I'm not going to go back through it. They heard a similar discussion. Did they make a recommendation?
There was no
they
vote,
gave-
Matt. A select board's words and actions are measured by their vote,
Okay.
not individual comments from select board members.
But right now, we're talking about what we're going to recommend to them.
But
right?
he
That's what
just
we're
said that
doing
the
right
select
now.
board asked or something. They didn't, the select board made no asks. Two select board members made individual comments. It didn't go further. The select board made no collective statement.
Fair enough. Bria, you've had your hand up for a while. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Going on that same topic of not putting laws that can change, I actually don't think we should be putting on the Massachusetts voting license is going to be required after April 1st, 2026, because we know what's happening with the real ID. It was changed a couple times. And
Fair
maybe
enough.
that's something to go in like educational piece there. It seems a little extraneous because who knows what will happen with that. And
Fair enough.
right? And then the swimmers and paddlers are encouraged. It does feel like that is putting the responsibility on only swimmers and paddlers to make sure that they have view of other motorboats. And being on the lake where I've seen people pulling somebody on a tow, weaving through different boats, that doesn't make me feel very confident that captain has view of other boats or the situation on the lake. So I prefer that it is it encompasses all and doesn't just leave that responsibility to the swimmers and paddlers, which is what that is kind of leaning towards.
Yeah. Do you have a suggestion of how you would change it to put it on the sign?
I would say something along the lines of all, I don't know, water sports activities, or I don't really know. I don't have anything off the top of my head, Matt. I wish
Yeah,
I
no,
did, but something
no
like
worries,
that.
no worries.
And
Well, we
then
can,
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And then the other thing, I'm still seeing the water skiing and towable activities, maybe towable activities would be wakeboard too. So that might be a piece there, but we're not looking at any time sharing, I see, folks. And I'm a little sad about that because I feel like we're kind of just staying in this one lane, and we're going for education, which is really limited because you're not going to be, stopping and doing a course with somebody going out on the lake. And that really has a follow-up on the association and conversations. And the biggest education we have is handing out stuff and having signage. I haven't heard anybody like running courses or anything like that. So I am concerned that we're not offering anything other than what we have already been doing all these years, which is the bylaws and education at the level it is. In my mind, nothing is really changing here in terms of the charge that we are given. We're kind of like agreeing to just kind of keep on forging ahead. Oops, we had an accident, no big deal. And that is disconcerting to me.
Mark, you had comments?
Yeah, quick suggestion on the boater license. Instead of maybe putting the date, what we ever need there, say, all boaters are recommended to take the Massachusetts Safe Boating course prior to, to initiating boating or something along those lines. And maybe under etiquette, we put etiquette and safety suggestions. So people aren't misconstruing that they're being forced to do anything. I like the idea of, as a safety suggestion, with the swimmers and paddlers, something along the lines, not just swimmers having buoys, but paddlers wearing visible clothing is not a bad idea. To include, having some sort of increased visibility in the swimmers and paddlers are encouraged to travel clockwise around the lake or wherever have a clear view. Something in there to sort of combine both of those. I think the idea that, we are, by saying that we're encouraging paddlers to travel, clockwise and to look at what's coming, I don't think that at all takes away the responsibility of motorboaters driving around. I think it increases the responsibility of everybody to pay attention, and that, you are responsible for your own actions as well. If you are not paying attention to your surroundings, you limit your ability to attempt to, save yourself in the event that something goes wrong. And I think it's always best practice to be aware of your surroundings. And so suggesting that people are aware of their surroundings, I don't think that negates anybody else's responsibility.
Yeah. Amy, put your hand up.
I was actually going to say something very similar to what Mark just verbalized there, is that the very first line of the bylaws, or sorry, I have the old one printed out, but so I don't remember the new one, the rules, and but the very first thing is boaters needing to maintain a proper lookout. So that is number one here, right, in what we're saying. And so then down much lower in etiquette and safety suggestions, however we want to word that, we are doing what Mark was just saying, is that everybody needs to take responsibility. But our number one is saying that boaters need to maintain a proper lookout. That is highlighted. We're not putting the onus on paddlers by what we're writing here. That's not how I read that at all. This is just about everybody taking responsibility for their own safety. And these are some suggestions of how to do that.
Thanks, Amy. Judy?
Well, I don't see how swimmers and paddlers have any option of getting out of the way of a motorboat that's speeding towards them. I don't see that. I can see if you're walking on the road and it looks like a car is coming over towards you, you could jump out of the way. I don't see that in the water that's an option.
Well,
could
and I
speak to
think
that
you
real
made a
quick,
good point
Judy.
earlier about it being a suggestions. We don't even have to call it etiquette. It could just be suggestions, and people can do whatever they want. I mean, at the end of the day, the lake is open for everybody to use it as
Yeah.
they wish. So I don't want to get too hung up on that piece of it.
Down. Well, and I also would like to have headway speed within 150 feet of swimmer. I would like to include that one on our bylaws. If none of the select board did say that they did not want anything in there, then I don't see any reason not to put that in our bylaws. And I think it would be an important thing to have one there on all of our signage, but mainly in the bylaws too.
Huh?
Did you say my name?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah, I agree basically with what Judy just said about putting it into the bylaw. In terms of the swimmers and paddlers encouraged to travel clockwise, I'd be more comfortable with something along the lines of Lake Wyola is a multi-use lake. However you use it, please be sure to make yourself as visible as possible and to watch out for all the other users here. And kind of just leave it at that. Because I don't think that puts an onus on anyone for anything unreasonable. And it gets at, I think, what traveling clockwise is trying to also get at, which is visibility. What can you see and can you be seen? And it's not as easily held against a person in these worst case scenarios where there is a problem and somebody chastises or in any way calls out another person for not having followed the etiquette of traveling clockwise, and they amp it up to almost like a regulation or a law level because it is on the sign, it's right next to the laws, and it's just also so hard to do as a swimmer. It's easier to do as a kayak or somebody with an oar, but not when the wind is blowing a certain way. For a paddleboarder, like it can be very hard, even for a swimmer, mind you. I've swum miles at a time, and it can be hard when you're on the open water to make your direction in one way. So I really think we just want to get at visibility on every user, like reminding people it's a multi-use lake. I don't know if you just were doing something there.
Nope, you're good.
But and I would also remind us that the Massachusetts laws are that, within 300 feet of a swim shoreline, all boats must be going no more than headway speed. That's essentially all of the shoreline of Lake Wyola. If you want, I can present that up on screen if it needs to be said again, but from a swim shoreline, 300 feet out, headway speed, maximum. Such that, and then on top of that, we have our own bylaw that says if you're out more than 150 feet, you must be accompanied by a boat. So under what circumstances would there be legally a swift boat near a swimmer? Also, because there's also a law that says if there's a swimmer, you have to be 150 feet away from them no matter where it is, unless you're at a maximum of headway speed. So this need to like travel clockwise in the presence of boats, it's hard to foresee it because it would only mean that boats would be doing something they shouldn't be doing, which is going more than headway speed in an area where swimmers are. So why would that even ever come up?
I could
Wondering.
speak to that. So a boat doing headway speed still presents a risk to a swimmer. There's a
Much less
propelling-
though than a fast boat. I mean, there's a lot more time for everybody to see each other. So I think it's really just about visibility at a slow speed than it is about the direction of the people who don't have that ability to change direction so easily without motors.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was, thank you, Tom. Judy, I kind of see what you're saying on this. And again, I think Tom made a good point. You know, the select board did not make any specific votes or anything like that. I may have interpreted their kind of acknowledgement of, you know, what they suggested or what their discussion was as, I don't want to take, maybe we don't take that as literal. And in that case, I mean, we could change our proposed bylaw revision to say speed limit is 6 miles per hour within 150 feet of swimmers and the shoreline.
Yeah,
I
that's
think that could
great.
that would kind of take that.
Except
Again.
that doesn't acknowledge that the state law is it's 300 feet within the shoreline if it's a swimming shoreline.
Mm.
And so a person seeing this at the entrance to Lake Wyola wouldn't necessarily have the wherewithal to think of the fact that it's different if the shoreline is a swimming shoreline or just shoreline. And that's a key difference. And most of Lake Wyola is actually swimming shoreline.
Does the state
Yeah,
define swimming shoreline as something that is established for public access? Do they differentiate between private lands and public swim areas, or have you seen how they define that, Tom?
Sure, I'll read it out loud to you, and if you want, I can screen share. But a motorboat shall not be operated at more than headway speed when the vessel is operated within 300 feet of a shoreline being used as a swimming area, whether public or private.
Thank you, Tom.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure on how to interpret that at this point.
Well, it would be 300 feet from the swimming shoreline.
How much room does that give you on the lake to actually go around pulling?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need some legal advice and or an EP to help us out to kind of give us an interpretation on like Lake Wyola.
How do you interpret 300 feet differently from 300 feet?
Well, I'm just looking at how the lake has been set up for all these years. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, the town of Lenox, I think it's called Stockbridge Bowl, has what they call a safety zone of 300 feet. It's reflective of this regulation of the state, about 300 feet headway speed, if the shoreline is a swimming area. So they just put the entire water body as a safety zone of 300 feet from the shore, because essentially most of the shore, like at Lake Wyola, is swimming shore. At Lake Wyola, that would, if you went in 300 feet on each side, you would still have, I think, about 1,000 feet in the middle. I thought it was at least 1,600 feet wide. But, that's there. And I just am concerned about having any of our bylaw not acknowledge or in any way mislead somebody to think that they can actually go more than headway speed at 175 feet from the shore. That's not actually legal if it's a swim shore. They can't go 10 miles an hour there legally. So, I mean, there are small portions of Lake Wyola that are not swim shore. It would be really interesting mapping to have that out there. And so I think there's a good argument for sort of a safety zone of 300 feet, maximum headway speed from shore at Lake Wyola.
And how would that deal with people who are being towed, right? And then they're, being released in front of their landing
Yeah,
point?
so most towns that have also water skiing on the water body where there's acknowledgement of the 300-foot distance from a swimming shore include that because there's also a prohibition of any motorized boat activity 150 feet out from the swimming shore. But the only exceptions that are carved into the law are mooring and docking of a vessel. So like if you have a house, you know, with a dock and your boat is there, you're allowed to get in your boat at your dock and putt out to the 300 feet mark. But the other side of that is that if you wanted to like launch a water skier, for example, you'd have to be out 300 feet from the shore to do that. You wouldn't be able to do that before, because I don't think you can launch a water skier at headway speed. I don't know because I haven't done it, but and I never could do it when I tried when I was 12. So yeah, it would mean that again, just imagine a 300-foot ring from the shore, and within that 300 feet, would the only allowable activity would be at headway speed, and then there would be a 150-foot ring, and the only allowable activity in there would be to moor or launch your boat from your dock, so to say. That's essentially what the state rules carve out, except that on Lake Wyola, technically, not everything is a swim shore.
That's my question, Tom. What is, I'm sorry, I missed it. Define the swimming shore for me?
It is a shore being used as a shoreline being used as a swimming area, whether public or private.
Who interprets that?
I think it's just a visual. If you,
But if,
That's pretty vague to me.
yeah, because I mean, what do you do if, you know, nobody's swimming? Is it
Right.
now a swim?
Am
shore?
I, if no one
Oh, is it a
swims in
swim
the
shore?
family,
Well,
is
how
it
do
not
you
a
know that no
swimming
one's
shore?
underwater when you say nobody's swimming? A swimming area is just an area that people can step into the water from.
Is that the legal interpretation of a swimming area?
Yes.
Really?
Every house around the lake that has direct water access that they can step into the water from, that's a shoreline being used as a swimming area.
And
That's a
I'm just
private
curious,
one
though,
mostly.
what law says that's a swimming area?
323 CMR 2.00.
I thought it just defined public or private. It didn't define activity, right?
They don't define what swimming is, if that's what you mean.
I mean, I know plenty of property owners that don't swim off their property because they're old. So are they not a swimming area?
Well, it historically is, and it can be. I mean, the assumption is that's a swimming area. It's a place where people step into the water.
I guess I find it vague. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm old, I swim off of my beach. I
It's
said,
shoreline being used as swimming area, just to use the full phrase. That's how they define it.
So being used, as does that mean currently at the time that a boat is passing? And
No,
then
because the boat can't know if it's being used by a swimmer underwater. So it's just like a pedestrian zone. You can't enforce it only if you see a pedestrian. Because a swimmer could be there, because it's a shore that is used for swimming.
so then what area on Lake Wyola is not a swimming area?
Down by kind of the south end of the lake, you know, the stuff that comes in from Ames Brook and the South Brook. There's a small section on, what's that side called? That's Shore Drive.
But does it
Brown.
become a swimming area if someone swims in front of it?
No, that's not a shoreline being used as a swimming area. That's somebody going from a shoreline being used as a swimming area to another part of the lake. So yeah, there's a small part, I don't know the address, I'm guessing it's around number 45 or so on Shore Drive that's just wooded. There might be a few wooded areas technically on the peninsulas by Gaslight. The town-owned land where there's a bench off of Cove wouldn't be considered a swimming area. But again, any home property where there's like that step-in access.
But if I'm walking through the woods, I mean, I may not have a legal right to be on that property, but if I
I'm
go
sorry,
and
I
step
didn't
in
hear
the
what you said.
shore, sorry, I'm saying if, you know, I may not have legal right to be on that property that is a wooded area, but if I choose to walk through there and step in and swim at the shore, now I've created a swim area, correct?
No, you just talked about the fact that you went onto property you weren't supposed to be
I
on.
think
So
So
it
that-
wasn't a
this is-
swimming area before you went on the property. It wasn't one after you went on the property.
Okay.
Even if you went in to
Yeah.
swim from there, that was a misuse of the property that you didn't have permission to be on.
Right.
But anybody be in that water and swim. It's a great pond. So once you access the water, you can swim anywhere you want. You
Right.
can stand anywhere in a great pond you want.
So anybody could designate their house and say, this is not a swim property, by choosing to say that we are not creating a swim property in front of our house.
I don't know if there's precedent for that. And I'm sure people have thought of that, but I can't imagine that would lead to a clearer situation on somewhere like Lake Wyola.
Yeah. I'd
But
say
I'm
that-
sure people have considered that because that is probably potentially possible.
Mhm.
But I think I think it would be more complicated than not to go that route.
But
And I'm not aware that that's ever been done successfully, but
Yeah, but I'm agreeing with Dave that there's some vagueness to this that could use some clarification.
so the vagueness is what is defined as a shoreline being used as a swimming area. Is that what I'm reading as what's vague?
Yeah, because if we're calling, I mean, again, it's a, does, is
Well,
it,
I'm sure we can find that answer out.
yeah,
That seems like a really straightforward question. What
Yeah.
is by state law a shoreline being used as a swimming area?
Yeah.
Does it
Is it-
include things like an active swimmer or not? And does it include places where, it could happen but isn't necessarily happening? That's what I'm hearing.
I think
Um,
that's kind of clarification I think we can
But
use.
yeah, I still though, everything I've read and seen so far says what I've said tonight, that all of Lake Wyola, I don't know, 90% is swimming shoreline. I don't have the number, I'm guessing the 90%, but I think you know what I mean. There's nary a place on Lake Wyola that isn't a private access point for a swimmer.
I'm sorry,
Amy?
Tom, can you say just again what the number of that law is? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, 323 CMR 2.00. And then within that 2.07 is about operation of watercraft or boats. And then also Massachusetts Chapter 90B, which is the governing law that created 323 CMR 2.00. Those are the ones. 90B is much longer and more extensive with more definitions. But I sent you on October 30th, I believe, an email with those. I might have resent them.
Well, we're closing on 7:20. I'd like to share my screen again here and just kind of talk through where we are at this point. Second. Share. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to move to our vote on the proposed bylaw revisions. And again, the idea here is that this would replace the first vote that we had about keeping the bylaws the same. We made these different changes. I did keep in the 6 miles per hour within 150 feet of swimmers and the shore, because that is a mass law, 150 headway speed from the shoreline. I'm saying shore. I took up the line part because I think we're still a little bit ambiguous on what's right or what. Not that what's right or wrong. I'm not going to contest any of that. It's interpretation. I think is more where we are. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through and do a roll call on if we want to accept these new revisions so that I can get these over to the select board if we choose to do that. I would then send those over to them.
Matt, just to understand that if we vote on this and we approve it, this would then go to town meeting for town to
Well,
vote on.
it would go
correct?
to the select board as this is the suggestion of the committee if it passes, right? So we're kind of
Right, if it
ambiguous.
passes.
If it passes or if we get a majority vote, then we would give this to the select board and I would give them, based on, I'll tell them the vote, what it was, or I'll give all that information as I convey it. And then they are gonna have to look at it and then they're gonna make a determination if they want to, include this on the town warrant. It's up, after we make the suggestion to the select board, it's up to them to do something with it. But if we don't get them something today, tomorrow, then it can't go on the town warrant. Everything gets extended out. And then, we don't have an opportunity to really do any education this year.
And if it goes on the town warrant, that means if it's at town meeting, there's going to be a substantial amount of debate about this.
Potentially.
Okay, so anyone who has questions or concerns, it will be raised again.
Yeah. I mean,
All
no,
right.
we're not making laws here. I mean,
Right,
we're
okay.
making suggestions. That's what we're doing. as a
Thanks.
committee. Yeah, one more quick one there, Tom, then we can move to the vote.
Thanks. Yeah, for the beaches section on what we're looking at now. Do you see what I mean? Only non-motorized watercraft can dock or launch from. The can and the from are going to get you into legal trouble.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend going to the one at the left and just striking the words the state, comma. Because essentially, I think you corrected that one in order to show that it isn't allowed at the state beach. And can, it just doesn't work as well as words like shall or may, or allowed or prohibited. So again, yeah, and just, do you see where it says the state? Yeah, so I would take out the state, comma, or I would take out the word state.
I did.
Comma after, and then I would take the comma after town out. And otherwise leave it, because then you're not messing with any other language.
I'm good with that. I agree with that.
But I do want to just echo Ria's mention that nothing's in here about time sharing that didn't already exist.
The one thing that I think we do acknowledge it in some regard, the 8 a.m. It may have been a written or unwritten rule before. It was
a written and unwritten rule before from the Lake Wyola Association. So I just want to reiterate that isn't reflective of any real attack on a time sharing plan that people would really agree about and eventually enjoy.
Yeah, and then I think, I did do a quick, research on, all the motor boating lakes in the state. I was
You
able to
didn't
call
share it
40,
with
40.
us.
What's that?
You didn't share that with us. You tell us that.
Oh.
And I haven't seen your research. And the research I've shown says it's a very successful possibility to do great time sharing. So happiness,
It is right.
safety.
So I do have the research. I'll provide that when I do the report. 47 lakes, 8 of them had time restrictions more than sunrise to sunset. 6 of those had delayed starts ranging in the kind of the 9 to 10 a.m. range. And then 2 of them had restrictions that were above and beyond that. So in my opinion, the majority of the lakes in the Commonwealth don't have time, really hard, fast time restrictions, except for a couple of them. I made this statement in the past. I mean, I'm not a believer in that. And I think that in the report that I'll write up for the town is if that they feel they need to entertain something of further nature in that regard, then they should hire a consultant and do a time study in the lake over a season or two and figure out what the actual patterns are on the lake. Because everybody on this committee and other people all have their own interpretation of how busy the lake is or isn't. So I don't think
we could also do a study by first incorporating a timeshare plan and seeing what the study shows with the plan. There are 2 ways at least to go about
Appreciate
that.
that.
So I'm just saying I'm disappointed that there isn't a real timeshare attempt here.
Fair enough. Kathy, anything before the vote? You're on mute if you are. Kathy? You're on mute, so whatever great words you're.
Sorry, my dog was in the background. I wanted to make sure he could hear me, and I didn't unmute myself. So I wanted to just say that I looked at the work that Ria did, which was really thorough, and I appreciate that, Ria. And I gave it some thought since our last meeting, and I came away with not thinking that these options are right for us right now. I looked at them all and thought about them carefully. I'm not a boater, a skier or pulling a skier with our boat, but I am a swimmer and all the other recreational uses I enjoy. The one thing that I thought about when I read the line that talked about wake sports and towed sports activity having unrestricted access all day is that kind of everybody does have access all day. And in reality, swimmers and paddlers, we have even more time between beyond May and August. And some of the best weather days, I think, paddlers in particular have access to the lake. So I just didn't think that for this season, at least, maybe not forever, but definitely not for this season. I didn't think we were ready to do a really detailed time sharing plan.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Well, we only have a few minutes left here, so I do want to get to where we are. So I have it up here, the changes that Tom recommended, also what Judy recommended. So these are the proposed bylaw revisions that we're voting on now. So I will go down through roll call. Christine Brazel? You agree with the proposed bylaw revisions or not?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought I was still on mute. Yes,
No.
I'm in favor of what you've got.
Okay. Kathy?
Aye.
Judy?
I,
Tom? Tom? You may say
Nay,
Tom.
I'm going to submit my own report to the select board.
Mark?
Aye.
David?
Yes.
Rhea?
Nay.
Amy?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank everybody for all the discussion there's a lot to digest all along. I appreciate everybody's input along the way as well too. I will share this with the select board. I will start working up a report that we can discuss on the next meeting as well. And I've been compiling a whole host of research, I'm sure like everybody else, and we can always potentially add to it or move things around. But the idea is to at least get some verbiage over to the select board this week. So with that,
I'll make a
Anybody
motion
want-
to adjourn.
all right.
Second.
Second by Mark. All right, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
thank you. Night.
Bye. Good night. Thanks, Evan.
Finland.
Be safe over there. Be
Judy,
safe over there.
Jennifer,
Judy.
enjoy Finland.
Enjoy
Thank
Finland.
you.
I hear about it. I want to see pictures when you get back. I hear there's-
Okay,
Gorgeous. I've always wanted to go. So
Amazing.
I look forward to it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.